So this is my Westinghouse Ipro4200. It has arrived, and I will tell you, in the spirit of full disclosure, this is my second one that has arrived. The first one was DOA. Westinghouse has replaced it with a brand new generator, and I want to talk about immediately as we see this, before I even do the unboxing, something that I've noticed, and this is sort of a weak point right off the bat. Just like the last generator, the packaging is almost non-existent. It's paper thin. So if you look at it, you can see, first of all, just like the last one, there's almost no packaging on this thing. It's just like a covering, if you would, right? So I'm also going to be shipping back the old generator in this box, and I hope it makes it. Another thing is, just like the last one, there's supposed to be oil removed from the generator, and I imagine they get most of it, but again, we see that what appears to be oil, we'll know when we open it up, has leaked out of the unit, and we could see it on the cardboard here and in other places. That being said, you know, they drain the oil as much as they can, and when it's shipped, they may turn the box, even though it clearly states right here, this end up. FedEx doesn't follow it, UPS doesn't follow it, nobody seems to care about that. So we're just going to get underway and start the unboxing now. Got the user's manual, maintenance guide, the generator itself, which we're going to have to pull out of the box carefully because I have to reuse this box. Then we have the kit here with all sorts of goodies that I'll go through in a little bit. I want to take a look here at the bottom of the box. You can see the condition as it arrived. All sorts of oil leaking out of it. The entire generator is affixed on rubber mount isolation. I think that's pretty cool. That should definitely help with noise associated with vibration from the engine. We'll see how well that works. I want to go through the controls on the front of the unit right quick. This is the pull start. Here we have the choke for the cold engine. This is the stop start switch for the ignition to allow the engine to start and to kill the motor. There's some indicator lights. This here is a low oil alarm or indicator light, overload light, and output ready. This is the efficiency mode switch. This allows it to run in a lower RPM on the motor when there is less load. Here we have a reset for the breaker for the inverter. This is a separate breaker, and what it does is the engine would continue to spin, but the inverter would be separated from the circuit, allowing you to clear whatever problem was going on, and then you could hit this button and the inverter would be re-engaged back into the circuit as they had explained it to me. Here we have USB 5 volts, 1 amp and 2.1 amp service. We have 3 separate 20 amp GFCI sockets right here. Each of them has their own breaker on the bottom. Over here we have a data center. It's a LED display with a little mode button, and it shows the voltage, frequency, and hours of operation of the unit to give you some information there. Bottom left corner is a nut that allows you to connect to earth grounds. Advisable, obviously, to connect this generator to earth ground. Along with the generator, you get a spark plug wrench, a funnel to fill the oil, and the oil itself, it's 10W30. It also comes with an extremely basic before you start sheet, like adding the engine oil, how to add gas into the gas tank, how to start, you know, choke something, turn on the fuel valve, how to add devices into the unit. Really basic things here in a quick start sheet. And that sheet also has a maintenance schedule too. It also provides some information about this unit. I guess that's okay. Engine oil, what have you, type of spark plugs. That's pretty cool. I find this a little tongue-in-cheek, but I'm going to include it anyway. The emission control systems have a separate warranty that is separate from the rest of the components on here. This is something that bothered me too. I had noticed this on the first one. You could even see in the instruction manual, and when I was looking at it when I initially purchased it, number 7 advertises this as having a fuel gauge. Yet when it arrived, there's no fuel gauge here. We could just see a warning sticker where the fuel gauge used to be. And I had asked about that, and they said it was a different revision for the tank, and it doesn't have a fuel gauge. It doesn't really tell me anything. It just kind of tells me that there was a fuel gauge for this model, and now there isn't. Nothing in the documentation calls out a break-in period for this generator. We're going to do that anyway on a new engine. But before I do, I'm going to obviously fill it with oil, because that would be terrible if I didn't. But I'm going to inspect the air filter right quick, make sure everything's okay. So I'm going to do the air filter first, then the oil. And we can see it's just a foam filter element, nothing crazy. Just wanted to make sure everything's okay, wasn't damaged in shipping or crumpled in half. And I find out, you know, only about 1,000 hours later that it wasn't in there, or was half crumpled and sucking up garbage. So now I know. I'll put the cover back on. Having already dealt with this on the first generator, I'll tell you that I am less than satisfied with this design. This is way under here by a magnitude, and for this they have a special funnel that you have to use to fill the oil. And be very careful, because this is not entirely empty. So if you think you're just going to put the entire contents of that 0.6 liter oil in here and somehow it's going to be perfectly filled, you're in for a nasty surprise. And I am doing this under my oil pan, which I've had to level. I used a level on top of the gas cap to ensure that the entire generator is leveled before attempting this, right? And what you have to do is remove this. This is a cap slash filler, which is really just one notch above the quality of a cork and a small hammer, right? And this plastic is really cheap, and it will cross thread through that aluminum if you're not careful. They really should have put a tube, a longer tube here. Try and focus. A longer tube coming out of here, right? Just a metal tube, and come up to here and then put a dipstick in, right? This is a terrible design, and you will find it both annoying and infuriating. I'm telling you right now, use this pan method. It's going to get messy, right? Especially if you don't heed my warning about pouring the oil in small intervals. So I've added oil. I realize it's hard to see. Maybe I could get it. It's just about the 60% mark on the scale here, just over here. And we can see there's still about 30% of the oil left in this oil bottle. So heed my warning about trying to dump the entire bottle in. You are going to make a mess for yourself. Yeah, so all in all, considering that oil is such an important part of generator maintenance, I am not at all thrilled with the quality of the setup here, with the placement, and especially with the cap and oil dipstick built into this really, really low quality cap that easily cross threads. It's absolutely terrible. I feel as though they could have done just a little bit more to make this setup so much better, but they decided to save a few cents with this cheap setup. It would stop people from either correctly performing this maintenance procedure or just not bothering, being too lazy, making a complete mess, and just saying, forget it, I won't change my oil because it's just too difficult. This is a real shame, considering this is a filterless oil system. I have gasoline mixed with fuel stabilizer. I'm going to be adding some, not a whole lot. I'm just going to have the engine run for a little while. I'm going to be doing a break-in. The plan is to measure it up against my neighbor's generator. So I'm going to be emptying out this generator fully of any gasoline and using a metered amount later. So right now this is just about running it, testing it out. So let's do that now. There is a pre-filter in this unit. And of course, be sure to turn the fuel valve into the on position. Give it a minute for it to flow into the bowl. So this is Florida in the summer. I probably don't need choke, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull it out a click, just for good measure. It's the first time. Then I'll press the run stop switch and put it in the run position. So without further ado, you can see it coming to life. It is not loud. It's not on efficiency mode. It's not as quiet as one of those fully insulated generators. This is inside my garage, and I'm talking to you right now. Let's get closer. Let's have a look. So I'm going to assume that the mode is currently on voltage if it's showing 123 volts. Yep. Frequency is almost dead on, 59.9. And obviously the hours is at 0 right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the efficiency mode. I'm going to hit this button. Let me push the choke in. There we go. And the idle has dropped down. This is not loud at all sitting in my garage. This is actually very nice. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this run for a little bit just to break in, and then I'm going to come back. So their voltage measurement is slightly off from my voltage measurement, but it's not too bad. I'm not really concerned about that. I'm concerned that it's a bit high. 125, right? That is interesting. It could be because there's no load on this unit, and 125 may be like a no load voltage. We could add a load to this unit and see what happens. I'm going to take it out of efficiency mode for this. I'm going to go on another breaker with the heat gun on low. It dropped down ever so slightly, but it only dropped but a volt. It didn't drop down to 120. Shut it off. It wants to surge up to 128. See that? Wow, that's something. So I'm here at Jose's where we're going to compare some of those findings. We're actually going to use my meter first to see those values with the same exact heat gun to look at the voltage that comes out of this, the idle voltage, and then load it down and then compare the spike on this Predator, which has an electric start. Sounds really nice. This is a wonderful generator. I'm kind of jealous. So Jose, go ahead, fire it up, warm it up for a couple minutes before we get underway.
Alrighty, go throttle off. Start.
That's fantastic.
A few minutes to warm up. Even out.
I've seen this run before. It runs a little bit rough when it's cold, and then all of a sudden it'll just smooth out perfectly. The point out is I hook this very same multimeter to Jose's. I see 124.6, just about 125 as I saw on mine. So his front meter is closely aligned to mine. What I would like to do, and I still want to wait a couple more minutes for this to even out. I'm just doing some preemptive measurements here. Let's hook the heat gun up. I want to see what the spikes look like on this one. Then we'll get the true RMS meter on. As it would stand, the true RMS meter is not far off from my meter, if only by half a volt. It's really not that bad. That said, you still need to look at what the spike is with the heat gun. The generator is now fully smoothed out. We've waited for that. We're at 146. I'm using the same heat gun as before. I think mine jumped up to 128 on the spike. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on. And the heat gun is running. So we'll give it just a little bit. We'll let it run for about 20 seconds. And this generator is running at 122.8. Front indicator shows 123. That's just fine. What we're looking for is the spike when I shut it off, though. And here we go. I'm going to shut it off now. So we saw it go up to about 126. So both of them have a little bit of a spike. One more test. We're back on the RMS meter, except we're going through an entire length of cable here. And although we're not going to see any change in idle, I would like to see what the change is in the voltage and spike when we have all the resistance with the amount of current that's going to be drawn through that cable. So we're at 125. I'm going to turn it on. Now we're down to 120. Right?
Yeah, it's got to push all that cable.
Yeah, there is a difference of 4 volts just by going through the extension cord. That's something very important to keep in mind. Yeah, I'm glad that we captured it though for the evaluation. Thanks a lot, Jose. This type of application would be more appropriate with a 12 gauge cable, right, which I will use in its final application, but I'm just doing testing right now. Also, I'll point out that as it is raining, I have moved the generator to its operating position in the backyard. We have the same setup again. Now we're inside the house. Generator's running out back. Same parameters as before with the heat gun. I'm going to turn on the heater now. And now we're seeing 121 volts on the generator. So we'll let that run for about 10 seconds and then we'll shut it off. Here we go, 3, 2, 1. We see again it spikes at 128 for just a second, comes back down to 125. This time I have a window AC unit connected to it. Right now I have the surge protector shut off. There's no voltage. I'm about to flip that on now. This only drops about a volt or so with the AC on, so I wanted to see how much current it's actually going through. I'm using my kilowatt here. By the way, it does show 60 hertz even. That's a good sign. Here it is. Now that the compressor turns on, we're looking at about 4 amps. Voltage dropped down to about 123, 122. And that right there running, we're looking at about 500 watts for this AC. The question is, what will the voltage spike look like when you shut off? 128. I didn't think that oil changes or fuel removal would be included in this video, but I've had to do it to return this old generator. I found that the techniques turned out to be quite interesting. For the draining of the oil, what I do is I take one of these oil recycling cans like this that I use for my car, and I carefully prop the generator up right on top of it. It's just sitting on there. I do so carefully as to not have the generator tip over onto myself or anybody else. And focus my attention on this screw right here. And make sure there's enough clearance here for where it comes out. It'll land in the container. This is a 10 millimeter socket right here. There we go. Make sure you capture any pieces that fell. I lost a washer right there. I'll get it later. Now I'm in no rush. I'll just let this all drain out. I may even go and see if I could kilter this just a bit forward to make sure it all is completely drained. Not shown in the video because I only have 2 hands. I carefully tilted this engine a good 45 degrees forward to get all the remaining oil on the bottom of the pan, because there's obviously no oil filter on this thing. That's probably a great idea. And because I use this setup here, you get nothing anywhere. When I put the screw back in, I'm going to clean up everything here with paper towel. There'll be absolutely no mess. Take this down to the local auto zone and have that dumped for free. A slight snug and we're done. One thing I learned is that when you're draining the bowl on this thing, as I did, you turn the screw, it goes to a container, you pour it into a gas can, you're done, right? Problem is the shape of this gas tank down here. You would think that when no more gas is coming out of the bowl, the tank is empty. It is not, and that's because it's not shaped that this is necessarily at the lowest level. It is at the lowest level, but it pools in other locations. So you could either put something under the generator to tilt it, and I mean tilt it like at 45 degrees tilt it, right? To ensure that all of the gasoline pools here and long enough for it to make its way out. Or first get a funnel under this filter right here and then drain the gas tank from this filter while tilting it. And then when that's done, put this back and then do the normal draining from the bowl. If you don't do this, you may have all of the gas emptied at the bowl, but you can end up with gas rot in the tank because you're going to have stagnant gas in here. And that's a warning to you that I discovered as I was draining this one for shipping. I'm going to do some quick measurements here of distance versus sound. The first one is going to be 5 feet. This is going to be under my awning area, so it's going to make a bit of noise, and I'm going to be using an app on my iPad, and it's called Decibel 10, and it may not be the most accurate thing on the planet, but it is something that other folks can also use and reproduce. And I'm going to be holding the microphone towards the generator for these tests. All the tests are going to be done like that, measured, pointed towards the generator, and I'll tell you which direction. This is going to be 90 degrees off from the exhaust. The first test will be 5 feet in the covered area, so lots of echo and reflection of sound. I should point out for this test that the ambient background noise is 67 decibels. This is with echo on. This is with echo off. Now I have it in an open area of the yard where I will take several measurements at a couple of different distances. Same test as before, 5 feet, 90 degrees off from the exhaust. do it again. Now we're seeing just 80 decibels. See, my talking is louder than the generator is. Increasing the exhaust is 2 decibels quieter, 78. Control panel side also around 78. Seems this is the loudest side of the unit. At 10 feet at the loudest side, it's 72. At 10 feet at the quietest side, it's about 68. Ambient is 62 without the generator. So what does this all mean in the end? Do you buy it or do you not buy it? I guess it depends on what you're looking for a generator. If you're looking for a generator to put behind your RV when you go camping or something, this is probably not the generator for you. You're looking for one of those boutique generators like a Predator that's heavily insulated. It's got the built-in electric start, and it rolls on wheels, and that's the kind of thing that you're looking for. It won't annoy any of your neighbors who are 20 feet away from you outside. This is quiet, but it is not insulated inverter generator quiet. If you're looking for the generator like I am, like I'm not going to be without electricity for a week, the next hurricane that rolls through Florida, but I want an inverter generator that's good on gas and not nearly as loud as a regular generator, and I don't want to spend a ton of money on a fully insulated generator or get like 3 of them and piggyback them together, this might be the generator for you. And that's the reason why I got it. Talking about some things specifically about this generator, again, a generator that you would not be using day in and day out. What I would call a special situation is what this generator is for. Some of the good things, again, it's an inverter generator, so it would seemingly be much more efficient than a conventional generator. And by the way, we're going to find that out in the next video. Jose and I are going to go toe-to-toe with a metered amount of gasoline, both at idle using the Echo and under load. I think we're going to use like just a small amount of gas to see which one dies first. Price. This one, look at the sizes. This is a 4200 peak, 3500 constantly running. Thing is in like 600 and change. There is just like no way you're going to find any cheaper for a generator that large. That's an inverter generator. Again, it's a hybrid. It's mounted in a conventional generator chassis. Therefore, it's louder and you pay less for it. It's just not as pretty. It's not boutique. It has no wheels. It's just not as easy or comfortable to work with. But again, for those temporary situations, there's a lot of stuff you can find online that have like how you could put insulating planks about 5 or 6 feet apart around the generator at 45 degrees to muffle it with fiberglass or other things. There are all sorts of tricks to lower the noise while providing adequate ventilation. But let me tell you what I didn't like about this generator, because I have to tell you what bothered me. Number one is the packaging, right? Because I got 2 of these in 1 month. The cardboard is paper thin. If I'm giving you a product, if I'm sending you a product and the first thing you're going to see is the packaging it comes in, and it's going to be all torn up and it's not going to protect the package, and oil is going to be seeping through because it wasn't fully drained and it wasn't adequately wrapped, that doesn't give you a good feeling when you first get the product. And as it turns out, the first one was damaged most likely because of inadequate packing, right? And I hear a lot about this about these big generators, and I've heard about it from Westinghouse, that there's just inadequate packaging and cushioning of these units in transport, right? The other thing is the gas tank. As I had mentioned, the shape of the gas tank on the underside is just extremely awkward. So there isn't a conventional way to drain it from the float bowl by draining the float bowl. And even the filter on the side of the unit, as I had pointed out, when you unscrew it, you still have to go and raise this side up and tilt it, because even though the hose for the lowest point the tank is over there, it's just so awkwardly built that gasoline will pool up in different portions of the tank. I think it's maybe about 12 ounces or more resides in the tank and just rot the whole thing out. and it'll be nasty and disgusting when you open it. So poor design on the tank, as well as the missing gas gauge that pissed me off, because when I saw the description for it, it told me it had a gas gauge. And the other thing that bothered me about this unit is the provision for the oil. I understand oil drains on these are just, what are you going to do? Because it's always going to be on the bottom of the engine, and you just have to suck it up and use the method I showed you with the oil canister and mount it on top of an oil canister. But as far as filling the oil, they completely missed the mark on this. They could have put a tube, and they didn't. Instead, you had to crawl under there and use that really cheap plastic measuring dipstick / filler cap that easily cross threads and is very awkward to use. Those are the things. I'm critical, but I'm fair. At the end of the day, I will say, given that, but looking at the price, looking at the loudness, and we're going to find out in the next video the efficiency, though the Predator is slightly smaller, delivers slightly less power than this, right? So far, that said, I am happy with the generator. So I'm going to stop the video here, and the next time we come back, we will start with a test to find out how efficient this generator actually is, and we'll give it some stress tests after I've more thoroughly broken it in. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.